Good afternoon, everyone. The Black Alumni Council presents the Life of a Leatherneck podcast. My name is Byron Williams, your host for today. And today's podcast features Mr. Bernard Muhammad. How you doing, Bernard?
I'm doing good, Byron. How you doing today?
Doing good. And, Bernard, we've been knowing each other for close to 39 years, 38 years?
Getting close to about 39 years. We met in
going on 40.
1983.
Let's round up.
Yeah, let's round up.
So what we want to know is, what have you been doing? Tell me a little bit about yourself. What's been going on in your life? Let the Leathernecks know out there what's going on with Bernard.
Okay. You know what? What I've been doing now is recently I made an adjustment to when we started going through the pandemic. And one of the things adjustments I made was I decided to do me a podcast. Just like you're doing a podcast now. And one of the things I did at work is on Mondays, we talked about the Chicago Bears. So in 2020, when we first went to the pandemic, I decided to do a Bears podcast. So that's one of the things I do to occupy my time. And it's been fun doing it. Mm-hmm. We're going on 2 years. We have about 565 subscribers on YouTube, about 600 followers on Facebook. So we're trying to grow that podcast.
Oh, okay. Yeah, hopefully we have some good news and they start winning one year, right?
Right. It makes for a better show. But one other thing, Martin, I did not mention is one of my dedications to scholarships that's been, I started in 1997, and I was actually inspired by the Million Man March to go into the scholarship area. But unfortunately, it was motivated by one of our fraternity members who passed away, and I used his death as a way to start my endeavor on scholarship, which is the Roy Shepard Scholarship. Yeah. So I started that in 97 with the assistance of the Brothers from Omega Psi Phi Epsilon Beta chapter. And then 2000, we started the Epsilon Beta Memorial Scholarship. And in my grad chapter, I was instrumental in helping us start the Carter G. Woodson Scholarship. And with our foundation, the Epsilon Beta Foundation, I played a part in starting the Epsilon Beta Scholarship, which started in 2019.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. And definitely we appreciate your dedication, because sorting through all those applications, reading them, it takes complete concentration and dedication to get through everything and award the right recipient. So thank you for your dedication, Bernard.
Hey, thank you. And thank you for everybody who participated in any of those fundraisers. And like you mentioned about reading scholarship, I had just thought about the other day. I've been reading scholarship applications since 1997. So that's about almost 25 years.
Yes.
I've been reading scholarship applications.
Yeah, and definitely the kids definitely need these scholarships today. I know when we were in school, you can get a student loan to get through the whole year with that one student loan. It's not the case anymore.
Right. I think when we were in school, Weston probably it was less than $5,000 a year. And yeah, you could get through with maybe, I think personally myself, I didn't have to take any student loans out during that time.
Oh, well, you were blessed then.
Or poor.
Right. So can you please share your WIU story? You know, there's lots of colleges, lots of universities across the country that you could have attended, but you picked WIU. What led you to pick Western Illinois University?
Okay. Hey, what led me to pick WIU? Let me go back to high school. I went to Limblom Technical High School, which was a school that prepared you for college. I was an athlete, played football, had no intentions on going to college. But everybody at the school was going to college, and one of my best friends, Emerson Bowie, his father, Emerson Bowie Sr., was a recruiter for Western, and he came to one of our games and he talked to us about college. And that was the first time I even thought about going to college. So in a nutshell, he recruited us to Western, and that's how I picked that. I only applied to Western and Howard University, and my plan was I was on get all A's my first year at Western, and I was on transfer to Howard.
Okay.
I forgot all about that after I graduated because I had so much fun.
Right. You say that went out the window. I'm staying.
Yeah, it went out the window.
Right. Nothing like Lincoln, Washington. I'll break you in.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, but as far as some of my experience, Byron, it was a good experience, and it contributed a lot to my growth.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I would like to thank is brothers like yourself, who were like my big brothers coming in, and not just because I was interested in pledging Omega Psi Phi.
Yes.
You were just one of the sincere people on campus that I thought was a real good person. And one of the peoples that who I looked up to was Mark Allen, which he's with the Ancestor now. But Mark was really my big brother as far as mentoring and getting things done and looking out for Black people. And I think it started in 1984 in the spring semester. There was a boycott about the African American Studies program.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so inspired by that demonstration that I went in and volunteered my service to help Mark, who was the president at that time, and James Brain. His name is James Anike now. And I went in and asked them, they need help. And they said, yeah. And I said, what y'all need help in? They said, what's your major? I said, I'm a business major. They said, well, you are a treasurer now. So I ended up being the treasurer of the Black Student Association the second semester of my sophomore year. And eventually I became the second vice president. Then I became the vice president. And my last year there, I became president of the BSA. And I also worked at the Gwendolyn Brooks Culture Center for about 3 years with Belinda Carr. So I worked a whole lot with Dr. Rudy Womack, Belinda Carr, Earl Bracey, when he was just one of the attorneys on campus for the students before he became vice president of student affairs. I was part of the individuals when Mark was pushing that campaign of if a Black candidate is not in the pool swimming, nobody's swimming. Wow. So, but like I said, I look up a whole lot to Mark, the courage he showed. And when I think back at it, I really, it's amazing because I realized he was only probably about 20, 21 years old.
Yeah.
And you know, and I guess when you're going through that stuff on campus, you don't really think about that. You really are young people. You know, and
some of us are a little bit more mature than others, right? Ahead of our time. Yes.
Correct.
Yeah, I remember you were a host of the Black Awareness seminars. I remember those back in the 80s.
Yeah, yes. Hey, Byron, you bring back a lot of memories. So so Byron, what I did do on campus, other than just pledging and being in BSA, I tried to create forums for Black students to be able to communicate. So we created, me and one of our friends, Sydney Muhammad, we created seminars called Black Awareness Seminars. Mm-hmm. And we had that going on for maybe about 2 years. And one of the interesting things about the Black Awareness Seminar, there was a guy on campus named Anthony Wells. And I had heard he did poetry. And I brought Anthony Wells in to do some poetry and show how when you do stuff, how it comes back. So after graduation in the late 90s, Anthony reached out to me and said, Bernard, I'm running for alderman in the 5th Ward. Oh. And he said, I need a campaign manager. I said, man, I'm not into politics, right? And he said, man, but you know how to get things done.
Yes.
And so I said, and he was like, man, you remember when I did that poem back in the day? I was like, you owe me one. So anyway, I ended up volunteering and ended up being his campaign manager. That was my first time and last time, but it was a very interesting campaign. And we actually ended up running against Leslie Harrison, who's the current alderman now, but she was not the alderman at the time, but she ended up winning at that time. Oh. And Tony also is with the Ancestors too, good brother.
Okay.
And then other things I would say involved, it was so many things I participated in school. I was part of the student orientation board. they had a movie committee that selected the movies that were shown in the union at that time, because they only show movies every so often. It's not like now where students maybe go to the movie theaters in Macomb. They show maybe, I believe, one movie a month or whatever it was, on Wednesday, whatever it was. So I was part of that committee. And also, a lot of people don't know this who do know me. I actually had a heavy metal show on WIUS. Byron Thornton had hired me. It was a volunteer when I say hired. And I did a couple of shows, and I ended up on the heavy metal because that was a slot, but I wanted to be on like a slot like Mark Allen, who we call Soda McComb. I'm like, no, I want to get on the night black people on. I think we were on Friday or Saturday, something like that, and maybe one day during the week. But they put me in on Saturday in the middle of the day playing heavy metal. And when the phone lines lit up, I'm like, I don't know what that song was, right? People call last week and I play the song again. I'm like, I don't know. Right. I'm like, hey, a lot of that stuff then was it was all pre-recorded. Yeah. And we might have had a list of what we were playing. And music was so much different than probably what they do now, because everything was like on a reel at that time. And so, where I just come in, and Byron was like, hey, I know you don't know this music. Byron probably doesn't even remember that. Byron Thornton probably does. Yeah. But after about a couple of shows, I was like, Byron, I can't do it, man. I got to be on the R&B show.
Right. That made your job easy. All you had to do was push the play button. You ready to go.
Right. Yeah. It was the phone calls that was getting me when people was like, hey, what was that song? I don't know.
I'll get back to you, right?
Right.
You know what? I did not know they showed movies in the union. I don't remember seeing one movie in the union. The years I was
a lot of the black students did not go to those movies. Yeah. At that time, a lot of times what we actually did was we rented a movie, and we might have had our own movie night. Because I know at one point we showed Cooley High movie a lot. And at least I know we showed the Black History Month, and then I remember we had rented the reel to reel, because all that stuff was on 16 millimeter. And I remember us showing it, and I want to say it might have been Tanner or one of those locations where we showed the movies. But the black students at that time did not go to a lot of those movies. Other than I remember, like, we had Rocky Horror Picture Show. That was in the union, and that's one of those movies where it was one of those participant movies, where you throw water and all that. So I was part of that committee that we voted to do that, bring that movie in. Also, since I was over BSA and worked for the Brooks Center, Belinda Carr put me over the River Newsletter. And what I tried to do with my administration when I was over BSA, I brought in students who were majoring in certain things. And I can remember Mia McShane, she ended up being the editor, and I just wrote articles. And I remember Antoine Bracy was my legal defense guy. And so his whole purpose was, if black students got in trouble on campus, Antoine went to their hearings to make sure that they got a fair trial. So, because a lot of students would, if they did something, they didn't know what their rights were. And sometimes they get into those hearings and they were railroaded because they never read the student handbook. We didn't have time for that. So Antoine was majoring in that area, and Antoine personally saved a lot of people. And I had to give a shout out to Antoine. He lives in the Philippines now. Antoine went to those hearings constantly to help defend black students. And sometimes it backfired on us. I always remember this one guy backfired on us and we actually got him out, and he told us later he actually did it.
Wow. Guilty as charged.
Yeah, he was guilty.
But
he was lying to us the whole time, that he had not did it. But it is one of those things, right? You trust that when people come to you and something happened on campus, that they're being truthful in it. But we did what we were supposed to do.
Yeah, help defend the young man.
Yeah.
All right, Bernard.
Okay.
Is your major still relevant to your career path? If not, what has been the catalyst for your evolution or pivotal change in life?
It's it's relevant now. It was not relevant when I first came out of college. My degree is in business finance, but my emphasis was on real estate and banking.
Mhm.
And at the time, I didn't really realize the real estate market of the potentials were at that time. And so I can remember, matter of fact, Byron, that we had some classes together. I believe we had real estate principles together.
Yes.
But you actually could get your license to be a real estate agent through those classes that we had at Western, because I had real estate law, real estate appraisal, I had real estate principles,
Yes.
and how the real estate law has become effective today is currently in the area that I work in. Even though I'm a financial analyst, my job, I deal with a whole lot of contracts. So I see a whole lot of loan agreements. I see a whole lot of legal documents, and the attorneys at the place I work, they take those documents, and once they close, they're like, hey, good luck. And so I found myself being able to use those skills and also to pull in the rest of some of my real estate background. And actually, for a while, I was actually a mortgage broker for some years, and I was a real estate investor. I had owned several. I used to invest in single family homes.
Yes.
So I had owned several homes that I was renting out to individuals, and always been in business for myself, to be honest.
Yeah.
My first business, and when I look back at it, I was an independent contractor. The lady was selling snowballs on the corner when I was probably 9 or 10 years old.
Uh-huh.
I went and asked her how much would she pay me to sell snow cones whenever she had to go get more stuff, because her children always show up. So we negotiated, and I can remember she paid me a salary to come cover her snowball stand whenever she left. And when I was in high school, I cut a lot of the football players' hair. And when I got to Western, I was cutting a lot of the black guys' hair in the dorm. Initially started on the floor. And so I had a business, my first business out of college. I had a bookstore for a couple of years. And like I said, I had my real estate business. And currently I have a business now that's a successful business. It's been around since 2009. It's called Sister So-and-so. Mm-hmm. It's actually a silk screen and embroidery business where we do a lot of t-shirts. Actually, this is one of the shirts that I did for the business. But I always believe in being an entrepreneur and doing things for yourself and having other streams of income.
And I know I've ordered several shirts from Sister So-and-so. So yeah, they're in my closet. So what was your most memorable moment at WIU? Now, I know you have probably 100 of them at least, but does any of them stick out that you would like to share?
I'm trying to narrow it down because it is a whole lot, but you know what? One that pops in my mind that Sydney and I talked about a few days ago, so I'll share that story. It's a lot of stuff that happened at a university with us as being young students, young individuals that could lead to railroading our college experience. And I sacrificed. I really didn't fear nothing at the most part. And I just believe in helping people who needed help. And I could remember we was having a after set at the Q's work. And, the Macomb police always came to different individuals, these things, say the music was too loud. So anyway, this night they grabbed Michael Shaw, one of our frat brothers, and they put him in the back seat. And so I said, hey, Sydney, we can't let him take him in because he didn't do anything, right? It was just like Mike had opened the door, so they just grabbed him, put him back in the car. So we talking, and I said, Sydney, we got to block them from taking Mike. I said, let's lay down. And we laid, people thought it was crazy, but we laid down in front of the police car. And they got out like, hey, y'all better move. And then I got up. And that's when I think most of the people came out, actually, when I was talking. So a lot of people only saw Sydney laying on the ground, but actually both of us was laying on the ground. And I actually got up and said, hey, I'm the president of the Black Student Association. You're not taking him to jail tonight unless you tell me what is he being charged for. And they looked at me almost like, do you know who we are? I said, and I was like, we're gonna lay down. You just have to run us over. Unless you tell us what he's being charged for, you're not taking him anywhere. And they looked at each other, opened the door, unhandcuffed Mike Shaw, told him he could go.
Wow.
And that's one of the most memorable things, because after it happened, I said, man, that was crazy.
But you took a stand. You took a stand, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but that to me at the time, when you are in those moments like that, it's not about if it's fear or those things. It's what is right or wrong. And like I said, later you may go back and say, man, maybe that wasn't smart. I don't know. But at that time, I did what I felt we needed to do. And that's probably one of the most memorable moments, because Western had its great moments, and also in the 80s you had racism happening, on the campus as well, like you do have now. But it still was a great experience. Yeah. And I do love the fact that I believe I played a part in making other students experience to not have to experience some of those things. And one of the better moments of going back to visit for homecoming is when somebody showed me my name was on the wall in the University Union.
Wow, that's nice. That's nice.
Mm-hmm.
As an alumnus of WIU to date, what is your greatest achievement?
You know what? I would say my greatest achievement, if I'm talking career-wise, I would say working for myself, even though I still punch a clock for another company. But my greatest achievement is working for myself and starting my own business. As far as in my personal life, is having, being married and having 4 children, and watch my children through their experience. In college, my oldest daughter is a fashion designer, yes. Have her own clothing line. My next to the oldest daughter, she works for Blue Cross Blue Shield. She also has her own business as well. She does crafting. My son just graduated with an aviation management degree from Southern Illinois University this past weekend. My youngest daughter, she just finished her freshman year at Xavier University in New Orleans. She finished with a 3.75 GPA. Her doctor is to be a neuroscience surgeon. Neurosurgeon. Mm-hmm. And so I know with having parents that have college degrees, it helps to have a role model for your children to say, hey, my parents did it, I could do it too. It took me 5 years to get my degree. I mean, that's the thing about it as well. When you're involved in that many things on campus, it does affect your grades to some degree.
Yeah.
And my last semester there, I was like, I'm not doing nothing other than going to class.
So you punching out of everything else.
Right. Yeah. That's it. I done burned myself out.
Oh, what are some of your experiences at WIU that are responsible for your success, and why? I know you had a lot of leadership roles, so I imagine that all of those activities that you were a part of helped mold you to be the person you are today.
I would say working with Dr. Rudy Womack and Belinda Carr, they were very instrumental in playing leadership role, because it kind of helped me kind of redefine how to address things as far as, working within the institution of doing stuff. Because a lot of times when you could be totally radical on stuff, but I'm not trying to get kicked out of school either. So I think in that aspect, they played a role in that. And I can remember right before graduation, Dr. Rudy Womack was like, hey, this campus is gonna miss you. And I was like, well, you know what? We left it in capable hands. So that played a role in being able to put myself in a leadership role, because actually before that, even though in high school I was an athlete, I was more of an introvert. I still have my introvert moments, but that allowed me at Western to reach in and show those leadership qualities that I really didn't know I had it on that level. Because I remember I believe when we were in school, the Dr. Martin Luther King bill was signed as the legal holiday. And I could remember being in a class and a professor said we wouldn't have class Monday. And he said, because there's a holiday for this guy, whoever he is. And I'm like, what did he mean? Whoever he is. And ironically, we had some workshops with the SGA that weekend. And I was speaking on one of the workshops and I pointed that out, that he said that. And some of the administration was embarrassed that he said that. And when I saw the instructor that Monday, you know, he's coming looking at me like, you know what, you better, you gonna earn your A this time.
Wow.
You know, he never said nothing, but I knew from the interaction with him that he saw the art, because it was actually covered in the Western Courier, that I had mentioned one of the instructors had said that.
Yeah, that must have been hard to experience back then.
Yeah, it was, because what people don't realize in those situations, there's a lot of stuff when you're the leadership roles, there's a lot of closed door meetings that the average student may not be a part of, and they don't know the things that you do behind closed doors. I had a lot of meetings initially with Dr. Wagner, I believe that was his name, who replaced Dr. Leslie Malpass as president. We had a whole lot of meetings, private meetings, about stuff, negotiating things. I can remember at one point, the SGA actually tried to pass something that was going to affect all the Black Greek organizations, where each organization had to have at least, I think it was 8 members on campus to be active. And a lot of the Black fraternities, sororities at times may have 3 or 4 members. And at that time, Omega Psi Phi, we were fine. We probably had more upward up to 20 members.
Yes.
But we had a closed door fight about that, and they ended up voting against it. But they strongly was trying to get that passed, and then I found out it wasn't coming from the SGA members. It was coming from one of the campus administrators.
Wow. And fraternities and sororities on campus play an important part for campus life, especially social service activities, leadership, and things of that nature. So it would make sense to have those type of restrictions at a university. But anyway, some of the life lessons that you learned at WIU, if you could advise a young Bernard Muhammad, a young 18-year-old Bernard Muhammad, what would you say to him?
You know, as far as life lessons, you know, one of the things I would say, and it's kind of almost, it almost contradicts some of the stuff I had said earlier. I would say try out for the football team. Okay. Because it was something I wanted to do, because I was a pretty good football player coming out of high school. You know, I was a small guy. But when I saw some of those guys play, I believe I was better than some of those guys I saw playing. And so that's one of the life lessons is, go and do it, go and try it. Don't think, worst thing could happen is you don't actually succeed, but at least you know you put that effort in.
Yes.
Because I was recruited by Grambling coming out of high school, but I didn't really know much about HBCUs then. I knew about Howard, but I didn't know about it in the frame of an HBCU. You know, I just knew Howard was a Black college, but that was it. And I knew Grambling, you know, Eddie. I was excited that Eddie Robson had sent me a letter, but I wasn't trying to go to Louisiana either.
It was far away back then, wasn't it?
Yeah. So that would be the thing I would say about college students now, or no matter what they at in life. Nothing is worse than not trying something that you really want to do, that because having regret because you did not attempt it is something that you always keep thinking about. What if I had did this? And I think that's important. Just go and try it. Try it. Put your effort in, and if you do it, then kudos to you. If you don't do it, still kudos to you because you tried.
Yes, yes. So if you had any opportunity to do redos, possibly change the past if you could, is there anything you would do differently at WIU that you didn't do? Besides join the football team?
That's what no, you know what? Yeah, when I think on that question, Byron, there's nothing I would change. Byron, my experience at Western couldn't be any better, to be honest. I mean, I matured as a man. I ended up being a better person. The leadership qualities came out that I had. I met some great people there. It's nothing that I would change as far as that experience. Prior to that, I would say apply for some more colleges, but that comes from being prepared. When you come maybe from a background where just getting a high school diploma is good enough, then sometimes you don't have those aspirations. In my family, my mother, I think she never made it out the 9th grade, and she was a single mother. So her goal was just to get us out of high school. So other than that, life lesson is apply to universities, and if you need additional advanced education, go and try it. Get it right away, because that's one of the things I did stall on. I wanted to get my MBA, and Dr. Womack, that was one of the conversations. That conversation we did have was he wanted me to come back to Western, and they was doing this program to try to get us all the way through to our PhD. And I want to say Dr. Chris Washington, he ended up using that program, I do believe. Chris is one of the alphas at Western, and Chris was actually one of the vice presidents on my team at the time. I mean, our team was very diverse. Chris was on it, who's an alpha. Emerson Bowie, who's actually over the FBI in Chicago, he was my first vice president. There was another alpha, was a couple of alpha sweethearts, I think it was a Zeta on our staff, a couple of just regular people. We had a full staff. I think we had almost 20 people. Michelle Bird, who's married to McKinley Bird, my frat brother, I believe she was our secretary or finance person or something. And Mia, like I mentioned, she was actually our editor.
All right. So, Bernard, last question. Is there any last comments for our viewers? I know you got some certificates on the wall. I did want you to mention what type of certificates and awards those are you have back there on display. In addition, if you can mention the scholarships, how individuals could apply for the Roy Shepard Scholarship, the Epsilon Beta Memorial Scholarships, and also the Epsilon Beta Foundation Scholarship as well.
Okay, let me mention the scholarships first. Right now, the Epsilon Beta Scholarship, we raise these funds ourselves. We don't have any big donors. So the Epsilon Beta, for those who golf, we actually have a Juneteenth weekend this year where we are raising money for the Epsilon Beta Foundation Scholarship. We have a comedy show on Friday, a golf outing on Saturday. That deadline was May 10th. That particular scholarship is for graduating high school seniors. The Epsilon Beta Memorial Scholarship is actually for students who attend Western Illinois that are African-American students that had to have at least 60 hours. That is on their website, because what we did was we set up, initially we gave out scholarships directly to the students. And then what we did was sat down with I don't know why I can't think of it. Janice Owens, Dr. Janice Owens, and we had an endowment set up, so we don't really necessarily have to raise funds anymore for that. And also the Roy Shepard Scholarship is for Black students at Western Illinois who at least have 60 hours or more with a 2.5 grade point average or better. And also some of these awards, Byron, it's a lot of different ones. This one right here, I know y'all can't see it close up on it. This one right here is where I was selected to who's who among American students at colleges and universities. That was in 87. Then the one over top is a certificate of appreciation from Dr. Leslie Malpass in 1986. the one underneath it, I was selected to this national organization while I was at Western called Outstanding Young Men of America. That was 1987. This one over here is, I got this Student Leader of the Month in 1986 at Western. Then there's a couple of other things. Some of this other stuff is like more business related and stuff like that. When I was playing high school football, I actually made it to the championship. But it's those things. But those awards are real important. It's something you could, put them on the wall, show your children. And it's things that, maybe they're considered as far as doing and playing that role. Because I know my daughter, she went to North Carolina A&T, my oldest daughter. And she was part of she was a senator on campus because they had different roles, but she was a senator on campus there.
Oh, that's nice. I had one other comment, Bernard.
Mm-hmm.
You're an author, Credit Emergency Surgery. I purchased that book, and we need a part 2. There's a lot of people out there that need credit help. So you want to talk about that? What motivated you to become an author? And you need to put that on display in the background also.
Oh yeah, let me bring this up, Byron. I forgot all about this book. I know the light is a little bright on it, but it's a book called Credit Emergency Surgery: Replacing Bad Credit with Good Credit. I actually wrote this book in 2002 or 3. This is when I was in the mortgage business. And, you work with people and they have credit challenges. And throughout that process, I'm like telling people what they need to do. And after a while, sometimes you help people fix their credit and they want quick fixes, or like, no, I don't have no quick fixes. This is the way you do it. And after a while, I said, you know what? I'm gonna write a book on credit. And at the time it was selling on Amazon. And I believe I sold about 3,000 copies through Amazon and other distributors because I had reached out to a couple of people who were wholesalers. And this amazing thing that one day I actually went on an interview back around that time, and I'm talking to the person in the interview, and they had actually, I think I put it on LinkedIn or something, and they said, hey, can you tell us about your book? And I'm at the interview like, what book are y'all talking about, right? I didn't expect that to come out, but I said, oh yeah, so the book. But anyway, I need to republish this book because some of the bankruptcy laws, because I got some information on bankruptcy. So some of the bankruptcy laws have changed since I wrote this book. So I have been contemplating revising the book and putting it back out with it up-to-date information. And actually, I had started on another book that I put on hold for some years. It was a book called, I got pages rolled for it. It's called Being Broke, I'm Not With That.
I like that.
I need to find the manuscript for that book.
Right. Okay. Well, any last words, Bernard?
You know what? I'd like to thank you, Byron, for having me on this podcast. Because a lot of times people who do things, that get things done, that kind of personalities like I am, sometimes you can rub people the wrong way at times, because I'm the type of person that if you want to get something done, I'm the person to ask. But if you're just talking about it, don't call me. Right. Because I'm going to pressure you to do it. Because I would say even, I played a role in getting to Gwyneth Brooks Park. And I don't know if it's mentioned much, but at one point, me and Nate Jones, who's a Sigma from Western, we actually had started putting together promotions like $5 holiday, drop a dime day. And at that point, it was maybe $1,000 raised for that park. And when Nate and some of the other students' efforts and competition with the fraternity sorority, at the time, I believe when we stopped with everybody working together, it was at $20,000 in a few months. And I know sometimes some of that stuff goes unrecognized because, everybody contributed, but I would say me and Nate, I had to bring up Nate, we put a lot of work on that. And I know even a lot of the organizations, the Greek organizations, all of them probably dropped about 2,000, but it took getting somebody to do it first.
Yes.
And I want to say it might have been Omega Psi Phi and the Alphas. It took those two organizations, dropping $2,000 to get the other organizations to feel like, okay, this could happen. Because that's the thing, when you got a $50,000 goal and you only have 1,000, that doesn't look like it's attainable. But once you get the ball rolling, once we got to 2022, wherever it was at, that made it where I had to give credit to our alumni from Western, Kim Lyford, state's attorney. She worked, I believe, and got the rest of the funds for us to do that project. And even though the Black House that we used to call is gone, there is a site for Black students now where they could congregate and just have a good time, whatever they may want to do. I mean, it's a park out there with Gwendolyn Brooks' name on it, and a seating area, whatever they'd like to do. And I would like for one day for us to make sure that those students understand the history of that Black House that was on campus. And what I understand, it was where a lot of the Black students in the 40s lived at. It initially was a resident that they lived at before it became a administration building.
Oh, yeah, that's some good history, Bernard. I want to thank you.
Thank you.
A wonderful participant, great podcast. Got a lot of information from you. You are a Leatherneck legend. That's what I'm gonna call you. Leatherneck legend. This is the Leatherneck Legend podcast series.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Hey, just a whole lot of peace and love to all the Leathernecks out there.
Yes. Have a good day, Bernard. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.